Hello, investors and traders, and welcome to the weekly market report. I'm AJ Monte, Senior Technical Analyst with Market Rebellion, and we have about 1 minute before the market closes. So you'll hear that closing bell, and then we will go right into the chart analysis. Just as a reminder, tomorrow, Friday, the markets will be closed in observance of Good Friday, hence the reason why this report is going out a day early. From here on out, I'm going to be putting the alert on 7 a.m. YouTube release, and unless there's a holiday, of course, like we have tomorrow, but it'll go out 7 a.m. It'll be a regular time so people can count on that. So be sure to hit the notification bell at the top of the screen so that you'll be notified when the alert goes out, and then you can catch up with the report. Now, if I go to the diamonds right here, you're going to see that we have a target that was hit from last week right there at 334.34. We have somewhat of a hanging man right there as we come into the close on lower volume. There we are. That's the closing bell. On lower volume, while the oscillators are hinging lower, the CCI has crossed with a sell signal. So for next week, I think the Dow is going to head lower right there with a downside target of 330.56. So that's DIA. If we look at IWM, it's going to look a little bit different. We did not come all the way up to that price target up there at 181.02, but we did pull back to this moving average during the week after the midweek report went out, and we have very, very slight bullish harami. So what I'm going to do there is a little bit different. I'm going to do a zigzag two-part forecast for you. So I think Monday and Tuesday, IWM could rally a little bit. And then towards the end of next week, I think we're going to take out the lows from this week. So here's the forecast. Upside target, 175.91, and then down to 171.82. So that's IWM. If we take a look at the Qs, which is basically representing here the tech sector, we came again very close to that target. We bumped our heads against resistance up here at 323.33, and then we pulled back. Now, for the Qs, I think this is going to go lower as well, like the Dow. There's a gap below the market here. I think that gap could fill. So downside target on the Qs is 309.77. Let me erase some of these lines to clean up the charts. I like to keep them nice and clean and fresh. Right, so there we go. Downside target again on the Qs is 309.77. Look down below. The stochastic is crossing with a sell signal, and the CCI is already crossed with a sell signal right there. So it's QQQ. If we look at the spiders, this is the S&P 500 ETF. Going to see we did hit the upside target right there. And then what do we have? On Tuesday, we had a bearish harami right there, and then it pivoted lower on lower volume. The stochastic is not quite at a sell signal, but I think on Monday it will cross. The CCI has already crossed, and so erasing all of these lines now to get a clean chart. We hit those targets. I'm going to go lower. Now, yes, some of you may have noticed we have a bullish engulfing candle right there. We have that on low volume. There's gaps below the market. But I think that the general markets are feeling a lot of pressure with the stress of a possible collapse of the dollar, among other things that I'll get to here in the geopolitical news. So SPY downside forecast is 401.73. Option trades, notice that date in the bottom right corner of that data box at 4/13/23. So if you're looking at short-term directional trades, I put it out on a webinar yesterday that you might want to go out further in time instead of buying these 0-day to expiration options and weekly options. You could run out of time and still be right on the forecast, but run out of time and wind up losing money. So be careful of that. If we look at the VIX, ticker symbol VIX, you can see that we are pivoting lower here. We are very close to this downside target that I had last week. It didn't quite hit that. I think the VIX might go down a little bit on Monday, maybe even open up lower but close higher. I'm keeping this in place. Nothing's changing there. VIX upside target of 21.20. Let's take a look at the geopolitical news. If you remember from last week, I reported that this article came out showing that China has increased its military budget by over 7%. And while this is old news now, the newer news is that they found that China gathered a heck of a lot of intelligence from sensitive U.S. military sites. This is very, very unfortunate. It puts us at a security risk. And if you think that is a risk, take a look at what's happening on the southern border. There are more Chinese migrants coming over on foot. And I find this extremely interesting because the CCP knows about this. And if people are being smuggled out of the country, I'm telling you right now, they would hunt these folks down and execute them. They're not going to put up with that. I think these folks are plants coming in. Notice the clues, right? You have military haircuts here, here, and even over here. And for those that have been in the military, you know, you could tell someone who's in the military versus the civilians very easily by the way they carry themselves, and particularly the haircuts. You have to pass inspections while in the military, and if your hair isn't short enough, you don't get to go on liberty or leave, and they continue to your duty station. The other thing I find very interesting is if you notice their height, pretty consistent there. They are young, single, very physically fit young men who fit the description of military, and they have not been coming across with women and children. So these are not families coming over. Again, it raises a big flag for me, and I'm very concerned about that because if we do have an open southern border, and China is basically loading us up with their military right under our noses. There's really no one taking charge of this and even questioning these folks right now. I haven't found any stories that shows any kind of interrogation or questioning. They're just putting them into the program, shipping them off on the buses and moving on. With regard to the height, I don't know how many of you have been to China. I've been there many, many times. And I've always noticed the military, especially at the schoolyard level, they even have these kids marching around in uniforms at the elementary school level. But in the military, notice again what I was talking about with the haircuts. They're very short on the side. They're very much the same height. Now, even in our military, to make special forces or to be part of any kind of honor guard or any kind of special units, they definitely recruit and train and screen on your height level. So you could ask any military person that is true, and that is what I'm referencing. I mean, this is just a photo that I took. It's a stock photo, but going back, you can see that there are clues that are telling me that we are at a security risk. Now, moving on to the big story of the petrodollar, you can see Russia and India are meeting. Russia is now agreeing to take the Indian currency instead of the US dollar, and even some oil producers are considering taking the renminbi in lieu of the US dollar. This is a story that is building steam. I've been talking about it for almost a year now, and the mainstream is just now starting to pick that up. So keep an eye on that story. It's just the beginning of the end of the US dollar as the world reserve currency. And talking about PMI, this is very interesting because this is accelerating to the downside. You could see that's what's happened in the COVID crash. But the purchasing managers, this is a survey basically of the purchasing managers, and you can see this is turning extremely bearish for our economy, and you want to keep an eye on that. Now, I want to talk about the dollar once again. You have the central banks are buying more gold. Again, this is a recent report. Look, it came out April 4th, just a couple days ago. And there's no sign of them slowing down on their gold buying. If you look at a gold chart, we are very much in line to beat or exceed the high of the chart. So we're reaching record highs on gold. And this week, I found that silver broke out of a cup and handle pattern. We're going to have to see if there's any follow through on that. But we see the precious metals going up. That is usually a sign that something is happening with the dollar, a sign of inflation down the road. And when the central banks are buying gold and silver, you really have to keep an eye out for that. I've been telling people to accumulate the physical as a hedge to preserve their wealth. Whether or not you're doing that, I don't know, but there's plenty of dealers online that you can go to buy the physical silver. Now, I'm going to end on this before we go. I just want to show you one of the first stories that broke was on Fox. about the petrodollar. I'm just going to play you a couple of minutes of this and then I'll come right back. So listen carefully.
Russia will begin using the Chinese yuan for international payments instead of the dollar. Saudi Arabia is also in talks with Beijing to do the same thing. Speaking of Saudi Arabia, meanwhile, they're in talks with Iran as well to consider an economic alliance with China and Russia. And they can even be joining the BRIC countries, which is an acronym for these countries here, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These countries all have emerging economies.
It's really hard to overstate exactly how catastrophic the abandonment of the U.S. dollar would be as the world's global reserve currency. Look, since the end of World War II, the dollar has been the safe place to go, and it's been backed up by a couple of things. It originally was backed up by gold, but President Nixon took us off the gold standard, so there's no hard asset backing up the dollar anymore for the last 50 years. But also it's been backed up by the strength and economic power of the United States and the fact that oil has always been traded in dollars.
Okay, now there's more to that. I took a screen grab of that because it was on YouTube and then it was removed from YouTube. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out in the rest of the networks, per se, whether or not they're even going to cover this. So what I'm going to do is leave you with a chart of gold. I just want to show you this. It's GLD, or actually you can go and look at /GC. That's the futures contract, and you can see that we are breaking out here of this cup and handle. This is the cup here. See this? And there is the handle here. So we are breaking out of that. Silver is looking very similar, but if you look at the monthly chart on this going back, you can see that there's a lot going on here. This is a monthly cup and handle. It's a little bit more on a slant here, but that is a monthly cup and handle, and we're getting ready to break out into all-time highs on gold, and we have a little bit of ways to go with silver, but once gold starts breaking out, I think people are going to really start coming into silver in a big way, and hence the reason I like silver so much and I've been accumulating silver. So that is it for this week. Be sure to catch the midweek report. The link for the midweek report will be in the description box below. Plug into Market Rebellion. I'll be reporting from there. And also have a great weekend. Happy Easter for those that are celebrating Easter. Happy Passover for those that are celebrating Passover with their family. Take the time off. I'm certainly taking tomorrow off. I don't get vacations, unfortunately, because I put out so many trade alerts. But I do take long weekends from time to time, and I'll be spending that with our family. So I wish you the best, and we'll talk to you next week. So long. There's no more damaging formula than to mix emotions with money. Listen, we're made up of emotions. We have fear, we have stress. The trading checklist helps take that all away. And now, wow, take a deep breath, relax, and enjoy the ride. You might be completely foreign to technical analysis. You may not even know what a bullish engulfing candle is or a shooting star. That does not matter. The great thing about what I'm showing you right now is I'm taking 40 years of experience here and I'm breaking it down to 7 points that you can follow through a trading checklist. Look at any stock, any ticker symbol using the 7-point checklist that I have and determine who is in control of that price action. I'm AJ Monte and this is my 7-point trading checklist.